Greetings, comrades, and welcome to the Eastern Border. Now, this episode is not the one that I wanted to make. This is the one that I need to make. You see, normally I don't make episodes reacting to current events that occasionally, but at this given point in time in history, I feel like there's a need for me to explain something to you guys. Something truly unspeakable has happened. I mean, not on the level of, oh no, just stunned me for a bit. No. Something so insane, something so crazy, something concerning Eastern Europe that I just have to make an episode about this. And hi everyone who's here because you Googled this thing. But yeah, what happened was that, as you know, I'm a football fan. That's soccer for you Americans, but so you understand. You might have heard of this team called Real Madrid. Just the biggest sports franchise in the world, the biggest guys ever, 13-time UEFA Champions League champions, the biggest sports club on the planet Earth. They played against a team from Tiraspol. I'll get to where Tiraspol is and why they matter. Team called Sheriff Tiraspol. According to metadata company Gracenote, Sheriff Tiraspol had a 1.4% chance of victory. 1.4% chance of victory. The odds were insane. It was about 1.11 versus 25 or something. And Sheriff Tiraspol beat Real Madrid at home in football. Now, this is so amazing that I just had to make an episode on this, because this, for me as a football fan, is insane. I've been mimetically rooting for Sheriff Tiraspol for a long while now because, well, you understand why, because that's a club full of memes. But, this month has been difficult for me, and, I like to watch sports to relax, and, well, the Wasps did it. It's just insane. This is their greatest achievement ever. It's crazy. And they beat Real Madrid, like the biggest club on the planet Earth. And this episode is just dedicated so that you guys understand why this whole thing is so important, so big, and why literally everyone around the world is just applauding them, even though Sheriff Tiraspol symbolizes what happened in the 90s and why some things with the sport and with business in general, Eastern Europe, are so weird. Because that in itself is not a normal club. Sports clubs are owned by businesses and they're run by franchises, but Sheriff Tiraspol is probably the weirdest professional sports team ever made. And they're totally the underdogs of all times because, you know what? Just to put this in perspective, I joked on my social media that Sheriff Tiraspol are run in such a way that if their players don't score and win, then their kids will be dropped out of universities and their families will be shot. And that's only partially joking, really. Because, oh boy, you probably have never heard of them, but this is the story of Sheriff Tiraspol. You see, guys, Sheriff, Football Club Sheriff, or just Sheriff Tiraspol, is a Moldovan football club based in Tiraspol, which is the largest city in the unrecognized breakaway state of Transnistria. And they play in the Moldovan Football League because they have literally nowhere else to go. They play at the Sheriff Stadium with the capacity of about 13,000 people. Now, Tiraspol itself is the largest city, if you can call it that way, in Transnistria, which is a breakaway state, very pro-Russian one. We'll get to what Transnistria is a bit later. But the city has a population of about 133,000 people. Not kidding. 133,000 people out of the whole republic of about 400,000 people. This is why this whole thing is just insane. They were founded in 1996, and they were bought in by a former KGB agent, Viktor Gusyan, who was an employee of the security corporation Sheriff, which is why they're named this way. He was an ex-KGB agent, a separatist, kind of like, the guys in Donetsk. Sheriff is a very bizarre company, which is founded in 24th of June, 1993. And Viktor here is one of the chief guys there. To put this into perspective, in this tiny breakaway republic, which is kind of like Moldova's version of Donbas, okay? Look, the Sheriff forms 60% of the gross domestic product of the whole place. It's insane. The thing is, Transnistria, where they are based on, whose capital is Tiraspol, from where Sheriff is playing, they're unrecognized by anyone. They're a breakaway state, where literally they still have hammer and sickle in their flag. Soviet military tanks are there. They have plastic money, because they really figured out that, we can't afford metal money. I'm not kidding. These guys are folks who use plastic money. It doesn't get weirder than this. Sheriff Tiraspol does not have another sponsor for their team. In every sports game ever, in at least football, you're expected to, have your team logo, then you have the kit maker's logo on your shirt, and then you have the big sponsor thing on the center. If you look up Sheriff Tiraspol and their shirts, which are either black or orange, then you'll notice the fact that they simply don't have a sponsor because they are so tiny and so unknown by anyone that they just don't have one. They lack sponsorship. Not even cryptocurrency firms or even Rhodesia or Rwanda. I think it's Rwanda. Yes, Rwanda, which sponsors Arsenal. Okay, it's a country that sponsors the team. No one sponsors Sheriff Tiraspol except the corporation of Sheriff. This is the most bizarre team ever to play in the Champions League, and they're insane. And again, they're based in this breakaway state in a country that doesn't even really exist, and they're forced to play in the Moldovan League because that's their only way how to basically, do anything. And so far, in their Moldovan national division, Sheriff, out of the 21 seasons that have even been in the Moldovan national division, the top tier of Moldovan football, Sheriff Tiraspol has won 19 of them, which means they've lost only 2 years out of the 21 years the league even has existed. Furthermore, if you've listened to my football episode where I explain how European football works to you guys, you know that there's a pyramid system in each country. See, Sheriff Tiraspol's second team is so dominating in their second league of football that no one else can even get promoted to the Moldovan first division, and they can't get promoted either because it is illegal for anyone, basically for the same team, to have them and their own farm team in the same top league. It's not allowed. So Sheriff is dominating Moldovan football. Sheriff 2 is dominating the second league of football. And it's insane because they don't even call themselves Moldovan. And the company, Sheriff itself, is literally run by mostly ex-KGB agents turned separatist turned terrorist, utter madness. So that you know that it's kind of like, I'll just use baseball terms here, okay? Now, Boston Red Sox, the only baseball team that I know of, imagine if, say, a team from Zeeland, an unrecognized nation state, tiny country which no one recognizes, 3 farmers, 2 carpenters, and the only kid who grew up there would come together and go to Boston Red Sox Stadium, their ballpark, and play baseball with them. And Boston Red Sox wouldn't pull their punches. No, Boston Red Sox would put out their best players out there, and they would lose. This is this big. To you Americans out there, this is exactly like a bunch of farm kids coming together, throwing up a baseball team, facing Boston Red Sox, and then winning them. The thing is that whole of Transnistria is located in the narrow strip of land between the river Dniester and the Moldovan-Ukrainian border. And it's kind of crazy because the region's origins of this Transnistria are traced to Moldovan Autonomous Soviet Socialist Republic, which was formed as a part of Ukrainian Soviet Republic. And, amidst the disintegration of the Soviet Union, they just got established there as in between Moldova and Ukraine, as in the hopes that it would remain within the Soviet Union. Should Moldova decide to unify with Romania or have independence or something, and they were just like an enclave of ex-Soviets who just stuck there. Everyone there is Russian, and their biggest export is old Soviet military stock, and they still have the KGB and everything there. And they still kind of cooperate with Moldova because of how they need to do economy. They also had a war, because they're literally basically the Donbass of Moldova, and it's a bizarre thing. So, they had their own war in 1992, which was concluded by a ceasefire. This was slightly before the Balkan Wars, but it's a mess of a region. Like I said, 400,000 people live there, out of which 133,000 live in Tiraspol, their so-called capital, I suppose. And as a part of this ceasefire agreement, a three-party, Russia, which basically funds Transnistria's existence, and Russia keeps military bases there, it's a part of this. This is why Ukraine is so worried about them. Well, Russia, Moldova, Transnistria, they have a joint control commission which supervises the security arrangements in this DMZ, because this whole thing is now considered a demilitarized zone, and they just are there. And although the ceasefire has held so far, the territory's political status remains unresolved. Transnistria is an unrecognized but de facto independent, semi-presidential republic with its own government, parliament, military, police, everything. 400,000 people live there. It's crazy. And they have their own constitution and flag. But after a 2005 agreement between Moldova and Ukraine, which is only countries bordering this place, all Transnistrian companies that seek to export goods through the Ukrainian border must be registered with the Moldovan authorities. And this is crazy because of how the borders work. They do all their business through Moldova, and Moldova lets them kind of be, and it's kind of bizarre. And the team from this bizarro breakaway state just dominates their football, and you wouldn't think about Moldova being a powerhouse in European football area anyways. And they're run by ex-KGB guys who are basically terrorists and who literally sell old Soviet guns to terrorists.
Hello there, thank you for tuning in into another episode of The Eastern Border. We are so happy to announce that this episode is brought to you by our friends at rusansov.com. If you're looking to buy new art, don't forget to use the code Eastern Border for a discount on us. Remember, head over to rusansov.com and happy shopping! If, however, you want to support our show directly, head over to patreon.com or our website theeasternborder.lv to find out how you can help out. For all things Eastern Border, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Discord. And as always, thank you so much for supporting us. We really appreciate each and every one of you. That's all from me now. See you online.
This podcast brought to you by RussianVoiceovers.eu. Enjoy!
Now, most Transnistrians, the guys who live there, they also have a Moldovan citizenship. So a lot of them have also Romanian or Ukrainian or other citizenships. This state doesn't even really exist. It's like nowhere. It's madness. Now, the Tiraspol itself, also spelled Tiras, was a colony of the Greek city-state Miletus, which is probably founded around about 600 BC. Yeah, kind of weird. We're talking about a city that was founded by the Greeks next to the river, which flows into the Black Sea, and it's just, And the Russian Empire kind of went there, and now the Soviets have stayed, and now we deal with Sheriff, their number one company, which makes up 60% of their GDP. See, this company was formed in the early 1990s, who were both members of the special services like Viktor Gushan and Ilya Kazmali, and ex-KGB agents. And they literally do everything, because these guys were separatists, and these guys were ex-KGB agents, and they just wanted to keep the Soviet Union, and then they just did some racketeering, and then they formed Sheriff as a security company, and now they own a football club, who just beat Inter Milan. This is truly the most bizarre reality that we live in. Now to be exact, currently, Sheriff owns, and I quote here, a chain of petrol stations, a chain of supermarkets, a TV channel, a publishing house, a construction company, a Mercedes-Benz dealer, an advertising agency, a spirits factory, 2 bread factories, mobile phone network, a college, they're building a 5-star hotel, which is still under construction, and finally, the football club FC Sheriff Tiraspol. Like, when I make jokes on social media about if you don't play well enough at Sheriff Tiraspol, your family's gonna get shot by KGB, because they run the whole thing, or by ex-mafia guys, yeah, it's only partially joking, really. Because, you know, it sounds like less bizarre on paper, but if you think about it and when they were founded, then these guys are basically racketeers and organized crime group who just literally stole everything that they could and decided to go legitimate, and just went full on, no, we're not doing totally crime again. It's a bit of a madness, really. See, these Transnistrian government policies basically have isolated the region from the rest of Moldova because of, well, how they work and how they've been, isolated, which has allowed this company, Sheriff, to make a monopoly there. And because of this, and because of how Transnistria works, they are also basically the oligarchs and the guys who run the country. The company supports government policy in general, and as a security business, basically, help strong-arm the opposition there, they get privileges. In return, for example, the customs service of Transnistria, which is headed by the president's son Vladimir, gives Sheriff a reduction on taxes and import dues. And this guy himself is also a major silent partner among the company. It's crazy. And they're the largest company over there who are just dominating all this stuff. And the Sheriff has used its economic clout to sway elections. They own the TV there, they own the mobile phones, they own everything. And their parties that they support gain absolute 100% votes and everything in like every election ever. And they are contributing to electoral fraud. And they also contribute basically to Moldovan elections, and Moldova is literally the poorest country in Europe. And Sheriff is so big in Transnistria and so rich, they've built a stadium worth £150 million, about 170 million euros or something, about the $7, but they're a bunch of gangsters who literally run their own country and run a football club. And no one knows about them. They're mimetic because it's insane. Now, the latest thing that they did, which I think I spoke about this on the show, is the fact that this year there was a Moldovan parliamentary election where the pro-Western forces won, but Sheriff was caught red-handed by giving, well, in their local currency, of course, but they were paying about $25 worth of money to all Transnistrians if they went to vote for the party Sheriff supported. I mean, and then they used this Sheriff football club to launder their money. They're run by an ex-GB gangster guy, and then they somehow just beat the biggest club ever. Now, sure, their politics is bizarre and everything, but they truly were the utter underdogs of this whole affair. I just wanted you guys to understand how weird Sheriff even is, and the fact that, their club guys and everything, they're doing a great job, but they're run by gangsters in a bizarro state. So, yeah, this is why, because of all these facts together, this is why I think that maybe someone should just look into Sheriff and understand what's happening at Tiraspol. Because truly, I couldn't ever find a more bizarre sports club ever on the planet Earth. It's a bizarre story, and I like their football flyers because, if they suddenly start failing at games, yeah, not even kidding. Their family members might be in trouble. So stay safe, Sheriff, and continue delivering because you just proved that for unknown reasons, even a gangster-run club by a country that doesn't even theoretically exist can be the biggest sports club on planet Earth. If this story wouldn't be so bizarre, I wouldn't be making a special episode about it. But yeah, Soviet School's incoming next time. Thank you for listening. I'm still stunned, but getting better now. До свидания, товарищи. And hope you enjoyed this weird, albeit quite short, episode on the bizarre little club that is Sheriff Tiraspol.
Thank you for listening to the Eastern Border Show. If you have any questions or comments, go to our website, theeasternborder.lv, and leave a comment there. Or email us at theeasternborder@gmail.com. We'll be sure to answer. You can also follow us on social media and contact us there. If you enjoyed this episode, then leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and tell your friends about us. It really helps us grow the show. And remember, happiness is mandatory.